If you haven't been living under a rock for the past year or so, then you're probably aware that India and Indians are the latest punching bag for the entire world, especially Indian immigrants living in countries such as US, Canada, Australia and Ireland. Here's a puzzle for you. Indians are among the most successful immigrant groups in the world. They earn higher incomes, start more businesses, commit fewer crimes, and contribute more in taxes than almost any other community. So why are we becoming targets of increasing hate and violence? Those looking for an easy answer will attribute it to our general lack of civic sense and move on. But scratch the surface and the answer reveals something uncomfortable about human psychology and modern politics. Anti-Indian hate isn't about Indians at all. It's about fear, economic anxiety, political manipulation, and the search for simple answers to complex problems. Today, I'm going to take you deep into the psychology and politics of scapegoating. You will see how economic success can paradoxically make you a target, how legitimate cultural differences get weaponized into racism, and how politicians and extremists exploit human psychology to gain power. By the end of this video, you will understand that the people spreading anti-Indian hate aren't primarily motivated by anything Indians have actually done. They are motivated by their own fears, frustrations, and political ambitions. Hi everyone, I'm Priya from It's OKR and this is our series Decoded, and today we are decoding the rise in anti-India hate. Let's look at the most cited reason first. Part 1. Indians lack civic sense. This is the most popular reason on the internet justifying Indian hate. There are various memes calling this out. There are even videos by major Indian YouTubers talking about this issue and calling this out as one of the reasons behind the anti-Indian sentiment all over the world. But let's look at some of the issues related to civic sense. We are loud in public, we don't maintain queues, we have different standards of public cleanliness, a general disregard for rules, misbehaving with women in a foreign country, misbehaving with foreign tourists in our own country. I mean, these are real problems and we need to highlight this often, introspect and hopefully change this behavior. Chances are it won't happen anytime soon. One of the main ingredients for civic sense is not education, it's empathy. And frankly, Indians lack empathy. I don't know how it happened, but we've all heard entitled statements like, "Why should I pick up the trash? It's their job." I think even the PM understood this, and that's why one of his first large-scale campaigns was Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. We all know how that went. What I'm trying to say is, yes, some Indians lack civic sense. We are a population of 1.4 billion. Of course, there will be a few people who are entitled, loud, brash, and misogynistic. You'll find these people in every culture. Recently, we've seen videos of Indians traveling abroad doing some questionable things. Why does this happen? Here's what some of the comments online said. When Indian communities get bigger, some people feel less pressure to adapt. Recent immigrants might not understand local social expectations. What's normal behavior in crowded Indian city might seem rude in a small Canadian town. So while I accept that work needs to be done here, I want to draw your attention to how actions of a few people are weaponized. Racists take these legitimate cultural differences and use them to justify broader prejudice. Generalization. The behavior of some individuals gets applied to all Indians. Exaggeration. Minor cultural differences get portrayed as major social problems. Double standards. Behavior that's overlooked in other groups gets scrutinized in Indians. The amplification effect. And social media makes this weaponization particularly powerful. One video of problematic behavior gets millions of views. Isolated incidents get presented as representative of all Indians. False stories like public defecation claims spread faster than corrections. Cultural celebrations get framed as lack of civic sense. When Irish communities hold St. Patrick's Day parades, it's seen as a cultural celebration. When Italian communities hold Columbus Day festivals, it's seen as a heritage pride. When Indian communities hold Ganpati celebrations, it gets criticized as too loud or disrupting the neighborhood. What most people aren't aware of is that all of these celebrations are done after getting due permissions from local authorities. Those comments about Garba on the streets, unwarranted because all rules are followed by the organizers. The road is blocked and the traffic is diverted. Faced with these criticisms, some Indians respond by blaming other Indians. It's not all of us, just those recent immigrants. People from a specific region give all a bad name. We need to police our own community better. This internal blame actually helps the racists by legitimizing the criticism. Even Indians admit they have problems, preventing unified community response, creating division within the Indian community. But if we zoom out and look at the actual data, we can all get a reality check. Here's what the data actually shows about Indian immigrant communities. Lower crime rates than general population, higher tax contributions per capita, higher rates of civic participation, strong family structures and educational values. The civic sense complaints, even when legitimate, are being used to justify hatred against an entire community that contributes enormously to their host societies. Part 2. The scapegoating mechanism. Let's look at how scapegoating works. Scapegoating is one of humanity's oldest and most destructive patterns. When societies face complex problems, it's psychologically easier to blame a visible minority than to address the root cause. Here's the basic formula. Society faces a difficult problem. Housing shortage, job insecurity, cultural change. Solving the problem requires complex, expensive, long-term solutions. A politician or leader offers a simpler explanation. It's the minority group's fault. People accept the simple explanation because it's emotionally satisfying. The minority group becomes a target while the real problem remains unsolved. Historical examples. This pattern repeats throughout history. Jews were blamed for economic problems in 1930s Europe. Chinese immigrants were blamed for job competition in 1800s America. Irish immigrants were blamed for urban poverty in 1800s Britain. In each case, the blamed group became a convenient target for broader societal anxieties. The Canadian housing example. Let's examine how this works with a specific current example, the real causes of Canada's housing crisis. 40 years of underbuilding relative to the population growth, zoning laws that prevent dense development, municipal approval processes that take years, investment speculation driving up prices, low interest rates that inflated asset bubbles, infrastructure that hasn't kept pace with growth. The complex solution would require reforming municipal zoning laws, investing billions in transit and utilities, coordinating federal, provincial and local governments, taking on powerful real estate lobbies, waiting 5-10 years to see results, explaining complex economic concepts to voters. The simple scapegoat solution? Indian international students are taking housing from Canadians. Which explanation is easier for voters to understand and for politicians to sell? The complex truth about decades of policy failures or the simple story about foreign students? Why Indians make the perfect scapegoats? Indians are particularly vulnerable to scapegoating for several reasons. Visibility. In many Western countries, Indians are numerous enough to be noticed but not numerous enough to have significant political power. Do you know what the population of Indians in Canada? 5% of the total population. In the US, it is 5 million. Success. Their economic success makes them enviable and creates resentment. Cultural differences. Visible cultural practices make them seem foreign even after generations. Political weakness. As immigrants, they often can't vote or have limited political influence. Stereotype availability. Existing stereotypes make it easy to craft narratives against them. Part 3. The success paradox, when achievement becomes a threat. Here's one of the most counterintuitive aspects of anti-Indian hate. Indians are being attacked partly because they are too successful. Let me show you exactly how success gets weaponized into resentment. The numbers tell the story in the United States. Indian households, 166,200 million income. All households, 77,600 million income. Indians earn 114% more than average American. Indians are 1.4% of the US population, but 36% of the Nobel Prize winners from America since 2000, 33% of the Spelby winners, 6% of all doctors, 12% of all engineers, CEOs of Google, Microsoft, Adobe, IBM, and many other major companies. In the United Kingdom, Indian-owned businesses generate tens of billions in revenue. Indians own more homes than Britons. They pay over 1 billion in corporation tax. In Canada, Indians have higher university graduation rates than the general population. They start businesses at a higher rates. They have lower crime rates. But why does success create resentment? This success should be celebrated as evidence that merit-based immigration works. Instead, it's being twisted into a threat narrative. Here's how. Narrative 1. They are taking over when Indians succeed in large numbers in fields like technology and medicine. It gets framed as a takeover rather than a contribution. Headlines become, Silicon Valley is now majority Indian instead of Indian talent helps American companies dominate global tech. Narrative 2. They are gaming the system. High Indian success rates gets explained not as merit or hard work, but as cheating or exploitation. The H-1B visa program where Indians excel due to their technical skill gets portrayed as Indians gaming the system rather than companies choosing the best talent. And yes, there's some amount of gaming happening there and there are bad actors, but it's also the system that has given the US the best tech entrepreneurs. Narrative 3. They don't deserve it. Perhaps more insidiously, Indian success gets attributed to unfair advantages rather than individual achievement. An Indian student winning a spelling bee becomes evidence of unfair cultural pressure rather than individual talent or hard work. The model minority trap. The term model minority seems positive, but it creates several problems. Impossible standards. It assumes all Indians must be high achievers, creating pressure on individuals and resentment when some don't succeed. Political neutrality. It suggests Indians should be grateful for acceptance and not advocate for themselves. Other group resentment. It's used to shame other minority groups. Why can't you be successful like Indians? Conditional acceptance. Success-based acceptance can be withdrawn if circumstances change. Part 4. The political machinery of hate. How politicians exploit fear. Anti-Indian sentiment doesn't spread naturally. It's actively cultivated by political actors for their own benefit. The populist playbook. Modern populist politicians use a consistent strategy. Identify a group that's successful but politically weak, blame that group for broader societal problems, promise to fight back against that group, use the resulting support to gain political power. This isn't unique to any political party or ideology. It's a tactic used across the political spectrum when convenient. Case study: the H-1B debate. The H-1B visa program has become a perfect example of how legitimate policy debates get turned into anti-Indian hate campaigns. Legitimate policy questions about H-1B. Should there be caps on skilled worker visas? How do we ensure American workers get fair opportunities? What's the right balance between domestic and international talent? How do we prevent abuse of the visa system? How it gets turned into anti-Indian hate. Indians are stealing American jobs. H-1B is a scam to replace white workers. Indians are lying on their applications. Tech companies prefer Indians because they're cheaper. The transition from policy debate to ethnic targeting is deliberate and calculated. The role of extremist groups. Organized hate groups have specifically identified South Asians as a strategic target. Diagolon in Canada, a neo-Nazi network that promotes white Canada ideology and specifically targets South Asian immigrants. Various neo-Nazi groups in Australia participated in March of Australia rallies using great replacement rhetoric. White nationalist networks in the US frame Indian success in tech as evidence of demographic replacement. These groups don't just spread hate, they provide intellectual frameworks that mainstream politicians can adopt in a sanitized language. Part 5. The psychology of modern resentment. Why now? The perfect storm. Several factors have converged to make anti-Indian sentiment particularly intense right now. Economic stagnation in the West. Wages have stagnated for decades in many Western countries. Housing costs have outpaced income growth. Young people face worse economic prospects than their parents. Traditional career paths, manufacturing, etc. have disappeared. Cultural change anxiety. Rapid demographic changes make some people feel their communities are disappearing. Social media makes these changes more visible and immediate. Global migration has accelerated due to economic opportunities and climate change. Political polarization. Politicians benefit from having enemies to blame. Social media algorithms reward extreme positions. Traditional institutions like media, political parties have lost credibility. Foreign interference amplifies divisions. Digital amplification. Hate can now spread globally in real time. Algorithms reward outrageous content. Echo chambers reinforce extremist views. Anonymous harassment has few consequences. The psychological appeal of simple answers. Humans naturally prefer simple explanations to complex ones. Consider these competing explanations for economic problems. Complex reality. Housing is expensive because of 40 years of policy decisions involving zoning laws, interest rates, construction regulations, urban planning, tax incentives, and global capital flows. Simple scapegoat. Housing is expensive because immigrants are taking all the houses. The second explanation is easier to understand, provides a clear target for anger, suggests a simple solution, stop immigration, makes the listener feel smart for seeing through the problem. The status anxiety factor. Many of the people attracted to anti-Indian sentiment are experiencing what sociologists call status anxiety, the fear of losing the social position. When they see Indians succeeding in prestigious fields like technology, medicine, it challenges their assumptions about social hierarchy. If merit truly determines success, why aren't they or their children achieving at Indian levels? Rather than questioning their assumptions, it's psychologically easier to assume Indians must be cheating or getting unfair advantages. Conclusion. Anti-Indian hate isn't just about Indians lacking civic sense. It's more complicated than that. It's about economic anxiety being redirected towards convenient targets, political opportunism exploiting human psychology, success being reframed as threat, complex problems being given simple wrong answers. The people spreading this hate aren't primarily responding to anything Indians have done. They are responding to their own fears, frustrations, and need for simple explanations in a complex world. This matters because it means the solution isn't for Indians to change their behavior or integrate better. I mean, yes, it should happen, of course, but it is also to address the underlying economic, political, and social problems that make people susceptible to scapegoating in the first place. That's it for today, guys. If you like this video, show some support by subscribing to our channel and do share your thoughts in the comments below. In our next video, we will decode how exactly social media spreads and amplifies anti-Indian hate. And remember, if things aren't going your way, it's okay, yaar, they will soon will. Until then, this is Priya signing off. Have a wonderful day.